Hello everyone, very good evening from India. People watching live, I want to convey my hearty thanks for joining this session, as well as people watching in the recordings or replaying again. Thank you so much for joining the session. This is going to be introduction to JSON, as well as it's going to cover a lot of topics that we use in software industry. Let's wait for a few more seconds before we get started. Thank you, Ishak, for joining the session. Let's wait for a few more seconds, and let's see if we have more participants. Yep. Hopefully, there are some delays with the streaming service. Am I audible? Am I loud and clear? Let's wait for a few more minutes. Hey, Ishak, am I audible? Am I loud and clear? Can you hear me well? No issues. Thank you. Here we can get started. It's all about introduction to JSON. JSON originally we can refer the documentations from JSON.org. So it's a human readable format where in software industry in most of the services it is used. So more than that, I have an interesting story to tell about. So when I was a kid, I was given a topic of writing a letter writing thing. Usually, kids when we were in school, we used to give that comprehension or some sort of letter writing competition that used to happen. So what used to happen was I was given a task: write a letter to your headmaster asking for leave. It was going. So many people wrote it. Everyone wrote in their own format. So few people wrote to sir, I want leave, and a few people wrote to respected sir, and they gave the complete address of school, and they didn't write the from whom it is coming, and few people wrote from Vignesh and to the respected headmaster, and they wrote the entire content with yours faithfully and everything. These contents are going along. Imagine if this is the scenario which was happening earlier, where people didn't have any standards or formats to communicate in a feasible way. It will create confusion in logistics. In case of letters, if we miss those standards that is provided, the communication and the communication failure used to happen in the logistics or operations. So that's the reason after few years or after few it took a lot of years for those standards to get applied. Example, if you want to write a letter, we had some sort of standards in place, like we have to put a from in the right hand side corner, and we have to put to with the name, address, mobile number, as well as we have to write the same content from whom it is sent, from the address of the person as well as the mobile number. So these are the formats followed in every logistics operations. It took a lot of years. The same kind of story happening for why we are going to use JSON. So today, people in software industry can use lot of technologies, tools to communicate between each other. As a person, as a human, we can interact with each and every person by using chat, messengers, Teams, and there are a lot of messenger applications available. But in case of, imagine if we want to make two computers to talk each other, two software application to talk each other, what are we going to do? So we had lot of options. So previously we were using XML. Even currently XMLs are used in so many applications. And imagine if an application is using text, what happens? A simple text application, it's going to be a painful thing. I'm going to share my screen to explain what happens in that scenario. Um, so we have people joining, and what happens when the two application servers are communicating with each other with just a text? My scenario is going to be get user details or employee details using a web page. It's an era where JSON was not there. We get the form details like name, like my name is Vignesh, and in case of text, I'll be providing my age, or I'll be providing my gender, I'll be providing my address, country. It goes like that. It happens with one application. Suppose if you have one application, getting employee details from application, it is good. But what happens? How we read this differs. So that's where the pain point comes in. In my backend code, what I used to do is it's a pipe delimited format. So I'll be using this text format as we have to take some estimation or prediction in mind. Like field number one is name, field two is gender, field three is city, and field four is the country. So this is some prediction used to happen. So the pain point with this type of text format, and we are following some non-standard way of communication between two applications, is a painting. So to solve this issue, many years back, our engineers, our software engineers, architects, those guys did an amazing job by introducing XML. It has some. It's an markup language where it has some sort of definitions in place. It can be used in various applications. Various programming languages supported XML. XML can be in the format like name can be Vignesh, gender is yum. So using XML, some sort of standardization came into place, and the main advantage of using these standards is this XML is provided by open source foundation. So they implemented this standard, and this standard is followed by millions of applications, millions of companies. Who is depending on communication between two servers is the most essential part to maintain to gather revenue for their business. If we maintain the non-standard way of communication, there are chances like company one uses a delimited way, pipe delimited way. Company two, even in the same company, if there are some project and people with different or budding talents, there are chances that they'll be using different format. And there are one more chances that they'll be simply using hyphen. So these are the pain points used to happen. We will not be able to scale our project to next level. We will not be able to extend our project, and because of these changes as delimitations, and because of getting the proper information without the key values like name, gender, identifying from the text protocol is it was painful. And from XML, since it is standardized way of communication, so people started to design application using XML. So what happens? We were able to share these. This is the design of the application. So I'll be having name, I'll be having gender, I'll be having address, I'll be having contact details. So this is the design. This is the design perspective people used to approach. And even XML had some pain points because framing the XML and maintaining them during design phase itself, it was a little bit tough. As you can see, what happened when I try to type XML, because it has a lot of tags. We have to have an open tag and a closed tag. We have to place the name in there. So there are some schema definitions needs to be applied. So there are some other challenges also in there. But after a few years, and due to the invention of lot of web application, lot of web application frameworks, we got into something called JSON. JSON is extremely popular nowadays. It's the way of communication. Lot of applications are using in the microservice world, in the world where JavaScript is extremely popular, like in Angular, React. People are enjoying the way JSON is providing, and it also opens the pathway for reading the JSON file in a user-friendly way. In this case, JSON has two structures. The JSON is built with two structures, and these structures are, one is the collection of name value pairs, and second structure is used to be an ordered list. It's like application with name value pairs has all the details, and it's a notation that has a list of objects or list of items that can be done. So in various languages, this is realized as an object, record, structure, dictionary, hash table, key list, or array. This is in case of if you are using the list of items in a JSON. So what happens here is, in case of JSON, it starts with the JSON object starts with a flower braces and ends with closed braces. How I see this asterisk, this format is like it's able to we are able to carry a list of item in a basket, and this curly braces are holding it. So that's the way I see the JSON. This is a gentle structure. Even in the can people actually can use it. It is a human readable format. It's a normal text format. In previous example which I shared, like I shared a form details, and in case of JSON, how we can write here is name Vignesh, and there are few comments from our friends. What is a schema and why do we need it? I'll get back to it shortly. It's going to be amazing. And each name is followed by a colon, name value pair, and it is separated by commas. So usually in JSON, we call them as key value pairs, or it's a name and a value, a name of the property and the value of the person. If we want to add additional properties, we can add it like this. Gender will be young. The key takeaway would be, in case of string format, where we are providing the information as in string, as in name, yum, it is mandatory as in JSON, we have to provide in within double quotes. Suppose if we are providing a contact number in the form, it can be provided without double quotes, because numbers without any white spaces are considered as numbers, and JavaScript object notation, which is JSON, is capable of reading them. We can have Boolean, Boolean can be without double quotes. It can be true or false. If you want to create another object inside this about my details, it's going to be an object. And any object in JavaScript starts with the curly braces. Curly braces, how I take is repeating the statement again. It's once again an item, a string that is carrying an object. So again, if address is an object, I'll be starting the object notation like here. I'll be closing the brace. This is an object of address, and second time would be I'll be providing street name 1 street in code. We are not stopping here. We are not stopping here. JSON has one more advantage of adding the list. Okay, right? Films. Suppose there are chances we need to utilize, we are collecting details to understand what is the likes and dislikes of an user, what is the films he is favorite about. Imagine Netflix is asking some feedback, what are your favorite films? How will you will be thinking, we have a lot of option to list in the form. We can provide web series as well as we can provide movies. So we can, it is listed. It is a container. It is a stack. I see themselves as stack. A stack is like a rectangular box where we can keep stacking our cassettes. In previous days, we have a rectangular box where we can have our audio cassettes. In today's world, we have a stack, a book tray where we can add our trays back to back. I see these square braces, as a rectangular box or container where we can add lot of items into it. So what I'm going to add here is favorite films would be I'll be adding films or web series. I'll be adding Money Heist, Squid Game. We are not stopping here. JSON seems interesting whenever we start working with it because the way we can write the JSON it gets interesting. It's like as a programmer we are not writing a code here, but the way it is written, the way it is structured, it feels like we are actually coding in an easier way. This way of JavaScript object notation written is easier for programmers, easier for even we can write a letter in a JSON format and anyone can understand it in the world. So that's the beauty of JSON structure. And one more thing, what happens is we can add list of items, list of movies here. But in case if we want to add more details to the list, this is where JavaScript object notation comes into place. Here I'm going to add favorite sport details. It's going to be a list, a container of items. In this case, it's not going to be just the sports details. It's not going to be just which sport I like or which sports person I like. It's going to be object of sports details. Favorite sports. And as we said, we have a curly braces to hold our object, and it's going to be in this format. We are creating an object again. Favorite sports name, cricket. Favorite player, Yuvraj. This is the overall benefit of adding the JSON structure. And I can even write this as a letter to my parents saying from Vignesh and from this is the contact number and this is a description. This is something I want to share it with you. It's a human readable format overall. And just want to reiterate one more story. These kind of standards are helping the programmers to share their idea, think in a JSON way. So usually when we communicate with people working in Angular and people working in Java, So Angular, usually JSON has native support for JavaScript, and so we talk in a JSON way. Like, hey, front-end developer, if you are developing something, this is the schema, this is the JSON structure I would like to share. It comes in this format. So you'll be sending in your form, you'll be sending name, gender, contact number, and in Java or in backend application like Node.js, I'll be receiving it as a JSON structure and I'll be storing it. The main advantage of using JSON is lot of programming languages are supporting the JSON application. The JSON structure is utilized very well. Until here, I just want to pause a bit, waiting for comments from participants. If you have any questions or anything you want to share, there are no comments. And the second topic would be reading and writing JSON. We have covered it. And third would be I'll be sharing about the JSON databases. Give me a second. Usually, JSON databases, there are a lot of databases available in the industry. So previously, before having JSON into picture, we had relational databases. What happens with the relational database, the idea of approach, the idea of developing the application starts from not from building the application, not from designing the HTML content, not from writing a backend code, but it starts from reading from the database because database holds the data. As per fact, and approximately only 10% of data is with Google. Remaining 90% of data is with the companies that is running software industry or providing services in information technology. Here, what happens with the databases? In relational database, we have a lot of databases like MySQL, Postgres, and in Amazon, if we take, we have support for Oracle DB, MySQL, as well as Postgres. So these relational database, they are in table structure. They have rows and columns. They have dedicated index. They have dedicated columns. If we want to change or add any columns into the relational database, we have to wait. We have to make a lot of changes. We have to stop the database. We have to update the schema. We have to make the same changes in the code or application so that it is not impacting the database. It is not impacting the flow. The business needs to halt for many more days until we make these changes without much pain into it. And then with the invent of JSON, databases like MongoDB, DynamoDB, Cassandra, what happens is we can add our data flexibly. In case if I am interested in sharing only the favorite films, and if I'm not interested in sharing the favorite sports details, that is totally fine. And we can actually reduce the data amount of data that is stored in our screen. When we talked about the structure of JSON, we were talking about Vignesh likes this. Suppose the user is not interested in sports details, and in case of relational database, we will be pushed to even enter some. We'll be still maintaining the data for column for favorite sports details will be null. Example, favorite sports name null. Favorite player will be null. What is the use of storing all this data in relational? Yes, there are applications that use relational database in an extensive way. They are stable and they are doing wonderful, serving the world in an amazing way. But these are the pain things that we identify during relational database. It takes a lot of human efforts. It takes a lot of time to actually update the relational database type, the table structure and columns. Once it is fixed, it takes some amount of effort to actually change it. But if I am not interested in case of MongoDB, if I am not interested in sharing the sports details, my my database data will look like this. So simplified way is if Ishak in the participant, as if you want to share more details, like if you are adding the sports details, it will still be stored and the favorite films will be ignored. So that's the benefit of, that's the smallest one of the benefit of having JSON JSON based database. Nowadays, a lot of application who wants to scale, who don't know what type of fields or what type of content will be receiving from the end, they are preferring the JSON database because it provides high flexibility. They can receive the content in case in future a thought we are depending on a third party. I am working from India. If there are people working in South Africa, they are South Africa or London. If they are providing some application which will be having some data into it, that data we don't know what type of data will be coming to us. We have to read the data. We have to store it somewhere. And from London, if we are receiving the data of so many people or so many people analytics data, in case some will be having some content, some will be not having some content, in future they'll be adding 10 plus columns. So in that case, if you don't know what we need to predict how to design the database, relational database, it is good like people are focusing on DynamoDB or MongoDB to use the scalable data to scale the application to next level. And one more thing I would like to share. This is the pain point that usually used to happen. This is not the way we receive JSON structure. The structure we receive in our application used to be different way. Usually, whenever we use this JSON, it comes in minified version. We don't get in here. This format is called pretty print format, and I will show you how it goes. Mhm. Waiting for some corrections with the JSON structure. And this is the format we used to get. Minify or compact format. Two datas, even with two datas, it is difficult to read. We have to read line by line. But in case if you are adding more data into it, then again the process becomes cumbersome. Reading data will be difficult. So that's why in industry standards there are tools to do it, like JSON formatter. This is the one of the most commonly used tool. Where is it? I'm resharing my screen that has the tools that can be helpful for people going to work with JSON. Getting to know about these tools will be helpful when you are receiving something, some minified version of JSON, and you want to convert it. Hope you can see my screen. So this is the JSON I supplied, and this is the minified JSON I'll be inputting. Actually, this beautifies. We call them as pretty printing of JSON. Pretty, it looks clean, it looks easier to read. So that's the way these types of tool can be used. If you are not, if you are a programmer and if you want to do a lot of stuff with JSON, there is another tool. That tool is integrated development environment, which has excellent support for JSON formatting. Here it is. This is IntelliJ IDEA from JetBrains. I'm going to create a JSON file, .json, and I'm going to give this. What happens here, if I want to format it, I can click Control Alt L. It reformats the code. It makes them more readable. So these are the couple of tools, industry standard tools that can be utilized for any grade of applications. if you are receiving a minified version of JSON file, we can always utilize these tools to pretty print it and look at it. And the next topic would be, as Ishak asked, what about JSON schema? I'm coming to it. JSON schema. It's a vocabulary that allows you to annotate and JSON documents. What is it all about, guys? So I am a developer. I have a front-end developer. I'll be sharing my JSON structure to him automatically, and I want to share it to my another developer who is working in another microservice, where what happens is he will be utilizing those JSON structure and develop the application. It is okay. It is good. We are people. We tend to communicate with each other with the direct set of JSON that we'll be utilizing. But there are chances. There are chances like, as you know, vocabulary and grammar is something we need to follow when we speak in English. So it is something we taught in school, and it is like a teacher. JSON schema is a teacher. Mm, It's a very strict teacher. It provides some guidelines. We can utilize them. We can actually validate our JSON documents. I'm going to share something that that will be interesting to you. I'm going to share my entire screen. Give me a second. I have already a ready-made schema.json. If you already are aware of these things, it is a structure of JSON schema. It looks similar to our JSON file, but it has something, some story that is telling to us, some story that is conveying to the users or program. Use the schema to validate if the incoming JSON is correct or not. It is like validating our JSON file. So JSON schema has, this is the schema definitions. It has a lot of versions. They keep updating, and the ID is once again it is from the JSON document, and I am going to provide the title of this object. This is the product, and this is the description. A product from Acme's catalog is a description, and the type would be object. This is something I will be utilizing throughout this JSON schema. What happens here is I'm saying that my JSON structure or our JSON structure that our application is using is having a type of object. And this object is going to contain two properties. One property is name is product ID. Description. This description is shared for. Suppose I am going to share it with my front-end developer. I'll be sharing this document, saying that, hey dude, This is the type of design I planned for reading the application, for reading the JSON. As per our design discussion, we can actually utilize this JSON structure. So our product will be containing a couple of properties, object, that is the product ID, and the type will be integer. Product name, type will be string. This description is more about this product ID. It's like a documentation we write in our code. If you are writing a method of adding number 1 and 2, we write a small piece of documentation in Java stating that it takes two input. Two input, one is a number and another one is also a number. What it returns? It returns the addition of numbers a plus b. So that's the type of documentation we write. But in this case, we are communicating with each other. We are communicating with our fellow developers, fellow engineer, or we are communicating with in the form of design document. It is the structure of JSON. It is a structure of data we will be receiving from any third party. We'll be receiving from UI guy. We'll be receiving from backend service that I need to consume via queue and store it in the database. So what it tells is these description or the a product from Acme's catalog is actually the helper documentation to understand what is the schema is all about. We are going to create an object. Object has properties, product ID, and product name, and we are also supplying the description for our properties and its type. Type is it is one of the mandatory field because product ID should be of type integer, product name should be of type string. Required within these properties we covered, and for this schema which is of type object, it has two mandatory required fields. So we are writing, suppose in case I'm adding a third property, uh, which is not mandatory, product barcode ID. Imagine if it is not mandatory, description non mandatory barcode ID of the product, and we have type as integer. This is the JSON schema which I built. I'll be sharing to my fellow developers. I'll be receiving the JSON file, expecting a product ID which is of type integer, expecting product name which is of type string, and it's an optional field product barcode ID which is again of type integer. If the customer is sending the barcode ID, it is well and good. If customer is not sending the barcode ID, no worries. Our application will still be happily processing. And what happens? I have a JSON. If you notice quickly at the bottom of this document, I have something called schema. So this is an excellent tool. IntelliJ IDEA is excellent tool for actually validating the schema. Instead of writing a code and getting our JSON validated, we can utilize this feature, JSON. And by default, it has a lot of schema mappings. You can also create our own schema mapping. We have schema.json, which is already our schema. We are mapping our schema with the schema.json file. The file mapping will be schema.json. It will be mapped to raw.json. The raw.json file is what we are working on. This is the raw JSON. It is getting annotated and validated by the schema which we previously wrote. Second thing, this tool is an amazing tool. I'm going to just control and space to autofill it. What happens? It automatically it reads the JSON schema. It understands that schema requires some fields, whether it is mandatory or not. Barcode ID. I added it. It came with the description. I'm going to type it as 1, 2, 3. If you see here, the schema is validated. There are typo. That's an grammar mistake. That's okay. But schema is getting validated. If you have any questions, what will happen if I change the name? If I change it to product brand, there goes. Our validator is actually not liking the changes we made. It says one warning. If you hover over it, missing required property product name. So that's what happens here. I can actually add it. Other fields will be still be ignored because by default JSON schema, though we are providing it as an optional, JSON still accept it, and it actually validates for the required field. So this is all about JSON schema. We can actually extend from JSON schema in a wide variety of as possible. In case if you are adding some more object, product object will be more details about JSON, about product. It is of type object, type object. And what I'm going to add is properties. I'll be adding product price, type integer, and I'll be adding here required object will be product object. Let's go to our raw.json. And it's once again got error out. I'm going to add missing property. See the amazing way of it gets autofilled about add the product price. So this is all about JSON schema. It can be used to even generate a sample JSON structure. It can be used to validate if our incoming JSON is right or not. Also, there are a lot of support for JSON schema in variety of languages using the third-party libraries. We can utilize the JSON schema to validate incoming JSON and keep our organization, keep our application a standardized one. The next topic which we would be covering is all about JSON. It's all about, I'm stopping my screen share. It will be about how JSON is used in Amazon Web Service. Any idea, guys? If you are on, you can always share how JSON is utilized. A live example I will be sharing now. So as I shared in one of my videos, I am AWS. So IAM AWS. AWS identity and access management. So it's the first way whenever we create a AWS account, it's the first way to get started with AWS. I'm going to log into the website and I'll share you how it is extensively used in AWS. We have permissions and roles defined in all the for all the users. So what Amazon does is they will be utilizing the JSON way of communicating to their internal services with the permissions that user is intended to give. I'm logging into IAM. I'm logging into properties or policies. I'll be sharing my screen once everything is set up. Where is my AWS? Here it is. Yes, we have policies. Policies are something in AWS where when I was in school, as soon as I joined the school, I was given an identity card. So imagine, though I have an identity card, only with the identity card I was allowed to enter into the school. Without identity card, I was not allowed. And then once I enter into school, I can go only to specified classroom because in my identity card, we usually have an identity card. We'll be having our class name, second standard B section or 12th standard C section, anything else. It goes that way, and I'm intended to go to only to that section. I cannot go to higher standards and sit and study there. So that's how I used to. We can relate those policies in AWS. So in AWS, we have a lot of policies, lot of permissions. As a student, if we go to school, we cannot go to staff room easily, so easily. We cannot utilize even staff restricted area. We cannot go into restricted area without permissions. We are allocated with a classroom. We are allocated with some of the areas where we can go and play. We cannot go everywhere. These are the permissions that is usually provided. In AWS, that's the same case. As a user, you will be having an identity. As a student, we had identity card. As a user, you will be having an identity, and then you'll be having some permissions. You will be allowed to enter only to certain classroom, or here in AWS, you'll be allowed only to enter into certain utilize certain services. For example, the most popular service is EC2. It's an elastic compute cloud. In short form, we can convey it as computers on cloud. We can use the computers using internet. So that's the simplest term I can put. If you look at it here, this is the EC2 full access. It means that some permissions are written here so that user with only this type of permission will be able to access the EC2 fully. Otherwise, user will not be able to access. Wow, look here how this is a policy summary. So user will be having access to the auto scaling, ELB, a lot of stuff. But the underlying data which Amazon Web Service uses is JSON. They have their version, they have the statement. It's a list of permissions they are maintaining. What action I'm going to do, what is the effect, And if you see here, we discussed about the object inside an object. It's a nested object. It is possible in JSON. So that's how the real in real world AWS uses it. And see here, it's the IAM. It's a list of strings. It's not a list of object. It's a list of string. It provides access to auto scaling dot these websites. This URL AWS provides us access. So this is the live scenario of how AWS uses JSON in Amazon Web Service. So we are at the final session. It's once again, there is always a hot topic. When there is JSON, there is another one, markup language, which speaks out. When I talk about JSON with my colleague, they used to come up with why not this. They used to come up with why only JSON. And here is the guy, the most famous guy nowadays. And this guy is enjoying in IT industry. This guy is taking control over a lot of applications. I'm so excited to share, and that guy is YAML. He still says YAML. I'm not YAML is not a markup language. This is the full form of YAML. YAML has a lot of advantages overall comparing to JSON. JSON is still a widely readable application in readable way of format in a lot of applications. YAML also does the same. I'll share the wonderful thing or how YAML looks like. Look at how we have YAML. I'm going to share it again. Where is Unfortunately, it is not visible. Here we go. This is how YAML looks like. This is how YAML is playing very in an effective way. It is similar to JSON, but it has only key value pairs. It has the array of items, the list of items will be in this format. Interest. If Adam Betram is interested in Instagram, Facebook, and keeping the family in check, so these are the list items. Instead of having those container like square braces or curly braces, YAML is much more simplified. It is widely used in configuration of application. There are a lot of applications which uses both JSON and YAML. Example, Spring Boot. Spring Boot and in the backend service and the backend application, they use both YAML and JSON file for providing their configuration to the applications. Both are really a good pick out of anything. The another advantage of YAML is it's the separators that they provide. They use three dashes to indicate the start of the document and three dots to indicate the end of the document. This is how happens in case of YAML. There will be a screen from IntelliJ which shows how it easily makes use of it. And here we go. This is a JSON. This is a YAML file which is already downloaded from available sources. See how it looks like. The start of the document. And what happens if I add another triple dash? I'm going to add YAML. I'm going to add name. Here we need not provide double quotes as we provide in JSON, but no harm in providing double quotes here. We can still provide, and I'll be providing gender. I am so easy to write, so easy to read, but the performance with the JSON still it has native support with JavaScript. It is quite better. But there are scenarios where YAML is now extensively used in a lot of applications, especially infrastructure as code in AWS, especially in writing a cloud formation template. Operations team guys are extensively using YAML. They are extremely enjoying how the YAML, the way of communication provides. So this is the way YAML is actually implementing. We can have multiple documents within the same YAML with three dashes. As in IntelliJ it says document 2 of 2. I'm going to write document 3. I can write document 4. This is not possible in JSON. And another thing is we can also add comments here. Comments in YAML, which is not possible in JSON. It provides some compilation error. There can be questions with our team where which one is better, JSON or YAML. So what is the verdict out of it? Both are an excellent way of communication, excellent way of standardizing our application. Still, lot of web applications, lot of event-driven applications, applications talking with Kafka, RabbitMQ, they are using JSON widespread, and YAML is extensively used for configuring the application, running infrastructure as code. Both has their weights in their own area. Both are kings in their own area. Having said, so this is the end of the live session. Thank you all for the wonderful participants. If you have any comments, here we go. The session is open for any comments or feedbacks which you would like to share. Um, are we good with closing the session? Are you excited to have another live session with another different exciting topic? Thank you all for joining. Have a wonderful weekend ahead. Let's rock it. Take care.